Good morning, everyone. Welcome. This is Angela Coulter and
Sarah Sieg Avagnoni.
bringing you this week's Ascended World Collective Energy Share. Good morning, Laurel. Oh, so we had so many conversations last week. What a tremendous week of shifting it last week was. I don't even know. Like, we could spend 5 hours on here and still not cover everything that we got to.
Right.
There is, let's just say it's an understatement to say there is a ton going on at the collective level and individual.
Right.
But what it sort of boils down to is what we were talking about on Friday, which feels like 3 months ago already. So and it boiled down to a conversation that I ended up having with a client that was like a good morning, Gloria. That was just a impromptu session or whatever, but it turned into this whole thing. So if y'all remember the Princess and the Pea, right?
Right.
And that the whole fable about the Princess and the Pea, where that she's sleeping on all these mattresses and she was so sensitive. There was this little pea and it was like whatever, how many layers down or whatever, and she just could not sleep because of this little pea. So that's where we are collectively. Let's just sum it up. That's pretty much where we are collectively, and how it manifests into us individually is it's
individual.
It's very individual to what's the little P that still holds you back,
Right.
that you don't want to look at. And so we will do everything we can to scream and pull our hair out. Laurel's on here. Laurel and I talked about this years ago about like there's like a big, the big black hole that you just like, I'm not looking in there. Nope.
Right. You'll contort yourself in all kinds of ways to avoid it.
But now we're like, now it's down to a P, right? We've condensed it down to a P.
A black hole is a black pea.
It's a little black hole P, but we think it's a P. The thing is, we think it's a P, but because that's the key that's holding us back, it might as well be a freaking boulder. It doesn't matter, right? So interesting enough. And that's manifest. And so like, and what the P tends to be is the thing that you're saying, well, I feel great in all these areas. I just can't seem to get past this. There's this one thing, and it's causing me this inordinate amount of fear, an inordinate amount of anger or anxiety or something, even though if you look at it from the bigger picture, it's really a tiny little thing. I had that come up with my cat thing, right? Last week.
Right.
And I've seen a bunch of people, like we're all hitting these P's. And I'm looking at it, and I even could see from consciousness, I'm going, this makes no sense. Why am I so triggered by this tiny little thing? Because it's really relatively not a big deal. Right. But it was so connected to something that was so deep that it took me like days of like pulling at the string that connected it. And I was like, what is this? And it just got deeper and deeper and deeper. So the interesting thing is that I wanted to sort of like, and we're going to talk about this, I guess, but to go collective, I had these dreams last night. And I woke up so disconcerted today because the dreams were all about that we're missing something. And I was like tearing up the P, right? I'm tearing up, like I'm looking under like literally cushions in my couch in the dream. And I can't remember what I was looking for, but it was like, but it wasn't just me. It was like, we are missing this. And like, where is it? And I'm looking for it. And I woke up and I was so irritated this morning because I was like, oh, come on. I thought we got it.
Right. Well, I know that, was that Friday? Or was that Saturday when Ruth Ginsburg died? Was that Friday or Saturday?
Saturday, I think.
Yeah, I think it was Friday.
It was Friday or Saturday. It doesn't matter.
Regardless.
Good morning, Nicole. Yeah.
I felt such a huge shift, like a baton had been handed over, and I have felt so I can't even find the words for it. Passionate about things that I was very about, and it's like, I can't not take a stand. I can't just lay down for it anymore. And it's not, only equal rights. It's me. It's like I feel such a different sense of me. And, whether that was the catalyst or whether that was, all our conversations all week long, but it's like all of a sudden,
We had many last week.
right. I don't know if it's I'm looking at things so differently and saying, okay, I see that for what that is. And at the same time, I can choose not to participate in that, or I can choose to do this, or I can choose, but I see what that is, but I still can choose different for myself.
Yes. Yes, I actually feel like I have a fire lit under my butt, which I know, like it was like I needed this space, like that pee needed to come up for me,
Right.
right? Except there's still something else, and that's the thing. That's I think for us to look at today, because there's still something else, because it felt like in the scope of what I was experiencing in the dream state, I was feeling like game on. It's almost like this. It's like, and it's not a battlefield. I'm not saying this is like a war thing or whatever, but I'm saying
Right.
it's like the equivalent of walking out onto the battlefield and going, "Holy shit, where's my sword?"
Whoops.
Wait, where is it?
Well, and okay, let's look at the battlefield.
Yeah.
It's the battlefield within ourselves.
Yeah. It's just, it's something, it's something, but it feels like it's something very big that's for us to look at, that we're seeing, that's not seeing right in front of our faces, right? Yeah, I was feeling around in meditation for that this morning. It still hasn't cleared up. But yeah, I mean, it's like something shifted, yes, and it's this call to action, right? It's the call to action that we've been waiting for.
Or almost like a call to being.
Yeah. All right. But it's a call to whatever. It's call to fulfillment. It's a call to realization. It's a call to
authenticity.
Yes, that's a great one.
And authenticity in a way that we've haven't felt in a long time.
Yes.
So it's that remembering that authenticity to the core.
Mm-hmm. And it's shiver.
I know, that felt really good. I have chills.
Yeah, and it's it's more than, so it's more than a call to action, but that's what it feels like. It's like the call to arms, right? Which is what we've thought of, right? Like, think of the battlefield. It's like it's right. Time, right? And it was funny because, I just remembered this. On Friday evening, I was doing a share with Kathy Guido, and I forgot. I've forgotten this already. I need to write this in my journal. But so, excuse me, see, there's the yawns already. That was interesting. So what she saw was very interesting. She saw me standing, the two of us went into a room, and in the room was all of us. And she said it was like this very uncomfortable thing where it was like, oh, who's going to do this? And I was like, I'll do it. And she goes, and I felt really uncomfortable about you even taking the whatever. And this was like the agreement. But the reality was, even though I agreed to it, I agreed to it on behalf of everybody.
Right. I was going to say, you agreed to it for all of us.
I will take the step forward, and then you'll all come with me. Like, it's like, and then you'll all come with me kind of thing, right? And she goes, So that was like the original like discomfort of that, blah blah blah, and then we went through all this stuff, and she goes, and then at the end, but there was other stuff that happened that she saw. I saw a bunch of different things that were related though, and she said, but Ezekiel, who was one of the facets of me that I've had as a a guide and friend for a lot of this stuff, showed up, and she said, "Is there anything? Oh, is there anything for me to say?" And she got, "It's time." And it's more powerful than you will ever can ever imagine, right? And it felt so freeing, and I was like, and it was almost like, because I saw it from a completely different perspective without the facet, without that message, but I felt it, right? So when she said it to me, like like my eyes got teary because I was like, I know,
Right.
it's time, right? And
Right.
I sort of let that sit, and it's funny that I had that dream, but then I sort of feel it this morning. It's like it, what did I say? It's not time. So I put something in my journal. It's because time is related to the 3D. It's now. Like that's what it is. It's sort of like it's
Oh, okay. Yeah.
yeah. And so whatever that is, and maybe it's the dreams that I had about the I don't know, maybe the dreams I had about the not being able to find the thing, right? Or being panicked because I can't find a thing, is the fear that we'll miss the mark, miss.
Right. We'll let it, and we'll have to cycle back around.
I don't even know about that. Honestly,
Yeah. Or
that's sort of taken.
it's almost like you'll miss the elevator up.
Missed, yeah, missed the cue. Missed the cue, the stage cue. That's what comes to me.
Right.
Stage cue. What we've been waiting for, what we've been waiting for, what we've been waiting for, what we've been waiting for. Like we're afraid to miss
Almost like we've trained our whole existence for this, only to miss it.
the fear of that.
Right. The fear of that. Right.
Yeah, something like that. Because honestly, I don't. Yeah, something like that. Like okay, almost like we hit it. We hit it in plain sight. Like, and we've said that for years, right? Where that the keys are all hidden in plain sight. Right?
Right. Right.
The message I got this morning in meditation was remember to see all of it, to see the whole, like meaning don't just look in the light, look in the dark, look in the
Right.
like the complement of all of it, to see the key of what it is that your P to
Right.
activate and engage.
It's almost like facing your P sends you to a new, or allows a new state of being for yourself.
Yeah.
And the doing comes from that new state of being.
Yeah. Yeah, because it feels completely different this week than last week. Because last week I just
Oh, yeah.
so much time on looking at, it's like pulling at the strings to the anchor on the boat. Like, where is
Right.
that? Where is that? Is it coming up? And then finally getting there, and it's like, oh, free flowing again. Nicole says the message she got in meditation this morning was show the blind spots. Yeah, well, that's the P.
That's the P. Yeah, I would agree.
Yep. So it's and anybody who hasn't like seen the fable Princess and the Pea, that's I gave you the sort of the just
Right.
at the beginning. You can look it up. The Princess and the Pea. That's what I mean by the Pea. So yeah, that blind spot. But we're so close. I don't know. You're right. Something shifted, and I found it interesting because I'm not really a huge fan of Ruth Ginsburg. I was not like, not that I wasn't a fan, but I'm just not. I'm not involved there. Like I don't
Right.
put a lot of my attention there. I know what she did was very authentic. It was very,
Right.
um, higher perspective, and I really, really respect her authenticity and her
Passion.
passion, to stay in that authenticity over the years.
Right.
So Whether or not you agree with some of the things she said, I mean, the thing is to see the energy of that power, because
Right.
that's what's there for us to um, embody now, right?
Yeah. Did you see Nicole's comment? To find the anchor is the stopper at the bottom of the tub.
Yeah, pretty much. So, so yes. Um, and I don't feel like her death is the last. That's, or that her transition is going to be the last. It's going
I
to
agree.
help that motivation,
I
right?
agree.
So,
I
like,
agree.
you have many who are sitting there going through this, like, oh, I'm mourning, I'm afraid of what they're going to do, la, da, da, in her stead. And it's like, no, 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 no. The energy to take is the energy to take from this, which is what I have posted about, is to take that celebration of that energy and to embody it,
Right.
because that is a reflection of ourselves and what our potential is. Um, and so it's time for us to stop diverting, distracting, delaying,
Or allowing someone else to do it.
allowing someone else to, or looking to someone else to do it,
Right.
right?
Right.
Like, oh, no, no, you do that. You did that so much
You've
better
got
than
it.
me.
Yeah.
You got
Right.
this, right?
And I think that's the feeling I got, was that she was holding that space. And as long as she was there, everybody could go, okay, well, somebody's doing that. I don't have to take that stand.
Right. And the way, and we've seen that from the beginning, though, the way for us to get to this next step forward is for all of us to embody our own power and our own authenticity
Right.
without that. And that was a big part about some of the stuff I reconfigured, even within my family and within, those who I'm interacting with. And instead of the web, it was cutting all the web of
Right.
interrelation to us all standing 100% in our own power without dependence on each other to do
Right.
that. But in knowing that we stand in the power, that we actually create an even more powerful web, because then that's when that becomes just oneness, right?
Right. It becomes it, instead of being a web of restraint and restriction, it's a web of empowerment.
And expansion. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. To find that interconnection to everything. So I think that's it in a nutshell, honestly. Let me look at my net or
Not
no.
much.
But yes. Oh, and so some of the things that we talked about on Friday that are actually really important. Okay. Because there are going to be a lot of people that look at this and they say, oh, no, I'm fine. I'm fine.
Right.
I'm fine. No, things are okay. They're pretty good. Right. And this is what sort of prompted that whole Princess and the Pea thing. Because like I had this client call me up and she was like, oh, this is great. And all this is great. And I've been da 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 da, and I'm doing all this. And um and she's like, except this one little thing I can't seem to get resolution on. It can't, like it's gotten better, but it's only gotten so much better, and I still feel like there's something there. And I've even had tests. It was a physical thing. I've even had tests, and the tests all come back negative, but I'm feeling like there's something there. And I'm like, okay, well then it's obviously coming from, the energetic, because, when you like to look at the basic of what we talk about in energy work, when you hold something energetically in a way that you're not looking at it and you're sort of denying it, although it has power over you at the shadow side, right, in the cracks and crevices,
Right.
it will create the physical manifestation. So pain, infection, injury, whatever, right? Um, and so discomfort, you name it. So I said that, well, that's where you're holding. And she's like, well, everything else is fine though. And it was so funny because everything else is fine. Everything else is fine. But there's this. And then the more we talked, it was like, oh, and then there's this, but that's okay. But I want to make it better. And then this is okay, but I want to do this instead. Right. Like it's all
I've
this.
settled for this, so that makes it okay.
Right. Because this is more comfortable. Right.
Right.
And then finally she said, well, I deserve to be comfortable. And she got really sort of very, you know, um, defensive about it. And she's like, well, I'm worthy to be comfortable. I said, exactly. Of course you are. Except comfort really is an ego word.
Right.
Comfort and discomfort is an ego word, are ego words. Because what is comfort is lack of, lack of perceived lack, right? What's sort of,
Right. Right. It's belief based.
yeah. And it is belief based. And that's what, oh, that's right. And then we got into the whole conversation about the beliefs, right? So, and it's belief based. And I said, so what is your definition of comfort? And she goes, what do you mean? I said, well, you ask 10 different people what comfort is, and you're going to get 10 different answers. That's what makes it an ego word, right? Because it's all
Right.
based on individual journeys. One person's comfort is, oh, I just want to have a place to sleep and to eat today, right?
Right.
One is, I just want to have a car where I can get from point A to point B with enough money to put gas in it, right? I mean, I'm like, I said, and then you have other people who are like, oh, well, just enough comfort to be able to get a pedicure every month. Yeah, like I'm like, that's
Right. Or
different.
5,000 square feet in the suburbs.
Right. And there's nothing, and it's not that we're judging any of that.
Right.
That it's important to look at what we define as our comfort, because it's in that we find our P often, because it's like, well, why do you call that? Why is that? Do you need that to be comfortable?
Right. Right.
Because if you need that, or you believe you need that, then that's a feeling of lack, which comes from the ego and duality.
Which is probably where the P is.
Right.
Exactly.
So completely different. Like, so this is like really looking under these tiny little layers, these tiny little cracks and crevices, because that's where it's hiding. And so the funny thing was, by the end of the conversation, we got into this place where she was like, because she was like, well, I don't know what this could be. And all like for an hour, she's in the whole session, she's like, I don't know what this could be. I don't know what this could be. And I'm like, okay, but are you doing your self work? Because she's got the tool. She's got this. I mean, she's done the Trinity one, the self mastery class. She knows, and when she uses it and she does her meditation, does her self work, she is a master manifester, right? And I said to her, why do you stop? Because when you're doing it, you've created miraculous things in your life. And then you stop, like it's too easy, right? Oh, well, there's a perception, a belief, right? This is too easy. If it's too easy, it's not fun enough or more of enough of a challenge. I'm going to stop and make it more hard for myself again, right?
Right.
But also things like, but then, like what she kept on saying, oh, well, da, 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 da. I don't know what this could be. And it was just like, and I could tell she was getting more irritated as I kept on pressing, right? And I kept on being guided to go in these different directions. And I would say things and she'd be like, oh my God, I can't believe you just said that, because this is how, because I'd be like, oh, well, just like this would happen. And she's like, or like, I'm like, well, right now, what's the big thing collectively? Feet issues, car issues, whatever. And she started laughing. She goes, oh, great. Funny that you would say that, because that foot that I keep on spraining, I just sprained again. And I've had these weird problems with my car. And I'm like, right, which is all about moving forward.
Yep. Yep.
So say it's comfortable and all that kind of stuff. And she was getting more of a, and then finally at the end, we're going around, and she's open though. She's like, but I'm open to this. I'm open to seeing it. And I'm like, except you're not if you're totally triggered by us talking about it, right? And then finally at the end, she was quiet and she goes, I think I know what it is. And it was like, it was so funny. It took all of that, like, and it was like, I was just guided to ping and ping and ping and ping until she just finally got quiet and stopped resisting, through the trigger. And stepped back and looked at it, and then she goes, oh no, I see it. I think I see it. And that's really what is important, right? And so when we say, oh no, I just want to be comfortable, I'm just okay being comfortable, that's that's my goal, right? That's how many people say that. What's my goal is to be comfortable.
Right. Yeah, Gloria says comfort sometimes can just be settling and not going the extra mile.
Yes. Right. And that's really, I've said this for years, as one of the most limiting words in consciousness is comfort.
Right.
I'm comfortable. Because that gives you, in the way that we are habituated to act in this set of dimensions, we've talked about the propulsion thing over the past several weeks, right?
Right.
So well, several months, several years, whatever, propulsion thing. But the propulsion thing, it's like, because what's propulsion? It's having some kind of resistance or some kind of lack or something that
Or
we feel,
discomfort.
yeah, or discomfort takes us out of our comfort zone. We talk about that, like leave your comfort zone.
Right.
So it's like we said, I think it was last week, that, there is no, or somebody, I don't know, somewhere we said this, there is no new normal. It's just, there is no normal anymore,
Right. Right.
which means erase the word comfort.
Talking about car issues.
Car issues. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nicole. Yep.
And Gloria.
And Gloria. Yep. So that's the whole thing. And people are like, what? When I say that, car issues, like, how does that have to do with anything? Everything has to do with everything. That's the
Right.
thing.
Right. Exactly. Yep.
There's no more saying when's a stub toe, just a stub toe. It's never a stub toe.
Never.
It never
Never.
just is. Right.
Right.
So,
The universe does nothing by accident.
right. So when I was saying that to my client, and I said, because cars are all about moving forward and taking you from one place to another, like, shift to helping you shift and whatever. And she goes, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so,
I was talking to someone about who'd had a knee replacement and saying, they finally worked through all those things that, we talked about it, how it was them moving forward. And all of a sudden, then they had these really bizarre car issues. And I was like, well, okay, you overcame this. So now this is in your face. And now
right.
the messages are coming through your car. But it's still, again, about moving forward.
Which is a perfect example of how, and came up in that conversation too, is perfect example of how when we attend to something in the physical, if we do not attend to it in the non-physical, it will just recreate itself in a different way until you finally
get it.
see it or get it. Yeah.
Yep.
And it'll usually get more intense or be just as frustrating or even more frustrating or whatever. So,
right.
Yeah. So that's the big thing. So like one of the big questions to ask ourselves that's what I said to my client too, is what do I define as comfort?
Right.
And it's a great exercise for everyone who watches or listens to this to do, is what do I define as comfort for myself? Because it's in that, and then everything that you list in defining as comfort for yourself, do you say, do I actually really need this?
Right. Right. Or does it just quell a fear?
Right. Right. Or is it something I feel like I have to be complete or to prove myself or to be valuable or to be blah, 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 to be considered valuable by others, but because then that's externalization, like still like that.
Well, it still ultimately comes back to a fear.
Right. And usually it ultimately comes back to worthiness.
Right. Fear of unworthiness.
Right. Because it was really funny, and even
we're not lovable.
And yes, and even in my discussion with my client, like toward the end, and she says, "All right, yeah, I'm going to get back to doing my self-worth." She said, "I'm going to get back to doing my self-worth," and then she stopped and she started laughing. She goes, "Oh, well, that was a slip, now wasn't it?" Said,
right, right.
Because really, that's where it gets to. So that's a big thing. The other thing that I wrote down here that from our discussion too. Oh yeah. So in the comfort thing, like Gloria says, she said, comfort sometimes can just be settling and not going the extra mile. Right. It's usually what we say in our minds is good enough.
Right.
Oh, what's good enough? This is good enough. I know I'm worthy of this. This is as much as I need to go. Right. But I feel like I'm pushing it if I go further, or I'm going to push my luck, or I'm going to
push my luck. Right.
Yeah, right. So what tends to be comfortable is what's safe, what we consider safe, in middle ground.
Yes. Yes.
Right. Of, okay, I'm going to be happy. And so here's the thing. Yes, the thing is, of course, is being happy with what you are and where you are and what you have right now. Right? Always. But that's always, no matter where you are, is to have gratitude for the journey and have whatever's in front of you is perfect to help you come to the realizations that you set yourself out to realize.
Right.
But the thing is, for us to really shine and be our authenticity is to not stop.
Right. Which, you know, we talked about, I think it was not last week, but the week before, about taking that extra step,
Yep.
that one more step. Take your worthiness that one more step.
Yep.
Take that extra breath. Take that extra self-care. Take
One
that
more
extra
step.
self,
Just take
right?
one step. Yeah.
That little bit more.
Yeah. When you hear in your mind, oh, that's enough, say, well, what if I did one more thing,
Right.
one more step beyond this
Right.
line of this is enough, right?
Right. Or
And
one more step beyond the line of perceived comfort.
yes, perceived comfort. That's really what it is, because comfort is completely a perception.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, what that gets us into the consciousness set of is not like feeling not settling for just what's enough, what's perceived as enough, right? And it's not to be like people think, oh, well, that's being greedy. No, it's not being greedy. It's because greed is based on a duality thing of lack, of I have to have more because I don't have it. When
Well, and if I have more, you have less.
right, right. But when we say there's a difference between, let's see, I think the challenge is with the word and the definition meanings and stuff like that. It's like, but it's like it's like a being in this place of saying, I have not just enough, but I have everything. I am everything. I can access everything in any given moment. And now is the time for me to stop limiting myself from accessing
Right.
everything, right?
Right.
So shifting the entire perception of I'm getting enough, meaning I'm attaining it, versus I already have enough and I have everything. So why am I limiting myself from accessing that?
Right.
That
Right.
changes the entire energy,
It
right?
really does.
So it's just and the thing is, it's not wanting more, Nicole. It's knowing we are more and we're not
Already have.
accessing yet. It's almost like the difference between saying I have to learn something and I have to remember it.
Right. Right.
It's like we're learning something and remembering, because it's not saying I don't know this when we say learning, but when we're saying I don't remember it yet, or it's for me to remember now, then it seems a much easier path because it's already there. That's like the
Right.
implication is already there.
Right. And, you know, you can always take that another step further and say, not only do I have everything and access to everything, but so do you.
Right.
So
And
does
so do you,
everybody.
right. And so does everybody. Yes.
Right. Right. Which really, really changes things up.
Right. Because then you don't need to be a martyr. You don't need to save the world or save someone, because it's already there and you recognize that everybody already has access to it. And
Right.
it's a matter of maybe being called or guided to help them remember that access for themselves.
Right.
Right. And so the other thing that I recognized last week in all of this was, once I had that motivation or that spark, oh my gosh, it's that beauty today on a Friday night. I was like, I recognized that I had the feeling of, not Friday night, it was before that. If I am all that I am, I'll be punished for it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we get the enough. Well, if I push it, I'm going to get punished for it.
So I'll let this be enough.
So I'll let this be enough.
Right.
And I had that finally come up. I think that was one of the P's. If I am all that I am, I'll be punished for it. If I realize all that I am here, I'll be punished for it. And that's a belief that many, if not a vast majority of us have.
Right.
Um, and then we looked at that and we connected that back to comfort too, because I was like, remember you and I were talking about it, and it was like, attachment. What is punishment is really attachment. What is punishment? We believe
Right.
we're going to be punished. Okay, so what is it? We believe that, okay, if they can't bother you, then they'll punish somebody who you're attached to, right? So your
Right.
spouse, your kids, something you really care about, your pets or
Hmm.
whatever, right? Look at that's what we do in the movies all the time and books,
Right.
right?
Right.
So it's like, well, can you stand in front of, like, can you stand there and like say, all right, well, then I'm going to punish this person. And it's like, well, but that's that person. It's truly that person's choice to accept that punishment or to
Right.
put themselves in that place, right?
Right.
And and it really goes down to these beliefs of, because that's where we are comfortable, right? And is what we're attached to often, which is why that's important to uncover and say, okay, well, to recognize this is here, it's not here, it is a person, or so if it's your person, right? Whatever that is, your spouse, your kids, your parents, your pets, or whatever, it's like, or an individual or anything. Okay, what am I attached to? And many times is it having like having this big house, having a certain kind of car, living in a certain kind of neighborhood. Well, that's all externalizations, right? That's the looking inside. That's the externalizations and the beliefs around, um, well, being with this person or having this person alive, right? So it was funny, we had that conversation, and then there's that whole thing with, the passing of someone who's prominent in our society, right?
Right.
Um, and it's like, oh, well, I'm attached to this person being alive. Well, mourning, mourning and sadness about death is a very egotistical and self-centered thing.
Right. Right.
And I'm not saying that with any judgment. It's just the case because
Well,
it's
it's about all about you.
yeah, it's not about the other individual because they're free of their bodies. And it's like, well, okay, so if the person had 6 years or whatever it was of late stage cancer that they were fighting and then they're finally free, it's a relief,
Right. Right.
right? So um so it's like, so Kim says this subject is so spot on with my past week, and this has helped me with what my P actually is. Good.
Go, Kim, go.
Go, Kim. Yeah. So yeah, last week was a challenge. It
Last week
was
was a challenging
a challenge
week for
for
sure.
everyone. That's why you and I we had scheduled call Zooms for like working on projects, retreats, stuff that we want to do together, and then they all ended up being discussions around this so that we
Right. And it was like, okay, tomorrow we'll get to that.
all
We'll
get to
schedule another one. Nope. Okay, the next day.
we just needed to be on retreat again. That was the
Right. Right.
thing.
I think we didn't Zoom one day last week, but I'm sure we texted.
Yeah, pretty much. But anyway, so the thing is, like, when we look at things like, right, so when we look at somebody dying and then we get very upset and we grieve or we
Right.
mourn, that's very self-centered. It has to do with our
It
own
is.
experience with that other person or individual or pet or whatever, because we are mourning or sad because we feel like we have a lack or a hole left in our lives because we felt like that whatever that was
Right.
filled a hole that we believe we had, which is lack, which is ego and separation based, right?
Right.
Versus, yay, they finished their whatever they came here to do, and I was so
Right.
happy to have them alongside here with me,
Right.
and now they're gone, but they're not gone because we're still
Right.
all one. And okay, and it's like, and then people are going to come back to me and say, oh, but it's okay to mourn. Of course it's okay to mourn, but the thing is for us to recognize it has nothing to do with the other person. It only has to do with us.
Right.
So in mourning is to look inside and say, what is it I feel like I'm lacking because of this individual's, like, not lack of physical presence in my life? Because
Right.
my experience has been anybody who dies, they're still there. They still come to talk to you if you want
Right.
them to.
Right.
And in fact, and it's a much freer kind of interaction. But part of this has to do with, like, these things are all really important to look at because we're not used to looking at every little P of trigger that comes up, right?
Right.
And it's not that we're micromanaging it, but we're down to such little things now that end up
Nothing is not important.
nothing is not important, right? So we might call it a P, but like I said, it could be a boulder if you don't have anything else in your way, but then that's it. It's going to block you and frustrate you and
Right.
get you really irritated. So part of this is, and the word that has come up again and again that feels so much better is the word navigate.
Right.
And we talked about that on Friday too. It's like instead of saying I'm pushing through this, I'm getting through this, I'm working my way through this, what if you said I'm navigating my way through this? Oh,
Right.
that feels so much nicer.
It's so much more empowered from a position of, I've got this.
Right.
And I see my way to the other side. And now I'm going to follow my navigation,
Right.
which, we talked about replacing the word guidance
Yeah.
for navigate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I
and
mean,
some people though
that's
have a hard time with saying guidance all the time, right? So if you want to say navigating, trust that. If that feels better and or easier at this moment, right?
right.
Because what is navigation, right? What is the GPS on your phone or in your car?
It's guiding you where you want to go.
It's connected to a satellite that's way up higher and can see the whole picture and is saying, okay, this is a better way to go right
Right.
now because you can't, even though you can't see it, that's what guidance is.
Exactly. Exactly.
So it's like, okay, so listen to your words, and I think that'll help the energy too of shifting the P and getting out of the way of yourself and being able to see it. Because now, like I said, it's like it is. We are being called to realize our authenticity. We're being called collectively. We're calling ourselves. We're
Right.
calling ourselves out on the carpet. Is what we're doing. It's like
We are.
we're here. It's time, right?
Don't
It's
miss your cue.
it's now, right? We won't miss our cue because we know the cue. Trust it and know that it's going to come to us like in the perfect moment, the perfect way, and it's going to be clear and whatever. And when you feel the compulsion, the motivation, the you can't I can't there's no word for that. Like when I get something that's guidance that's like now,
Oh, right.
there's no not doing it.
There's no denying it.
No. No. And when we trust that, it becomes so much easier to navigate.
Right.
So, so this week, that's, I think that's the key is committing ourselves to seeing those any P or P's that we have left, right? Because
Right.
I want to say P because there's like, it's usually all like this spider web back to this one little thing.
Right. Right.
Well, and it was funny, right? So, like in my personal experience, it was like, so what? My cat had a big, like, massive anxiety breakdown because I was gone for 12 days, which was so weird, and was licking himself bald and all this kind of stuff. And then I was like having this meltdown about him having this meltdown, and it was just like such a weird thing. And I'm like, what the hell is the matter? Because it's like, okay, cats have those things sometimes, right? So we can work through it. Da da da. And I'm going, no, but this is really not a not a reaction to it that would feel, I can't think of the right word, but Q brings
You from
mind.
Star Trek.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But anyway, so like, and I was like, okay, so nope, I know there's something else that's under this because otherwise this would not trigger me so much because it's a really minor thing in scope of like
Mm-hmm.
the big picture. And it did, it triggered me. I put a big brick wall up on from my like my beingness from coming, home from retreat and everything else. So in working through that, it just tied back to like when I finally felt beneath that P, it was like, or looked at it, and it just broke apart into this web of stuff from other lifetimes, like some really deeply ingrained stuff. It was collective, it was individual, it was like one of the main themes of my experience as human that I've held as this punishment.
Right.
So once I looked at that and I was like, oh, yeah, okay, well, resolved, apologized, forgiven, accepted, embraced, grateful, like thankfulness, right?
Mhm.
Once I
Right.
committed that into to breaking all the webs, to cutting all the webs that were this interconnected mess of like, right, you know, pukiness, everything shifted like that. And people are like, and many don't like think, oh, like how could a cat having anxiety attack do all that? A stubbed toe is never a stubbed toe.
Right. Exactly.
So, so it's like, okay. And so especially right now, right, is looking at the things that seem to be not, and I don't want to use the word logical, but like just in terms of context, illogically out of um, proportion to the situation. That's when you know you've hit on that P, right?
Right.
When your
Right.
reaction is illogically proportional, like you know, like improportionate.
Right.
That's the
Right.
word, improportionate to the reaction.
Right.
Because I had full conscious recognition that my reaction was so improportionate to the situation, and I'm like, "Whoa, this must be something big." But I didn't even want to like, "Oh no!" And the ego goes, "No, shut down now!" Like,
Close that door.
"George, stop looking at that. Look at this. Be upset about this." So, um, yeah. And the thing is, then when we start looking, because then we hold things like, oh, well, somebody else close to us takes punishment for what we're choosing. Well,
Right.
that's choice, right?
Right.
That's choice and agreements. We can change that. And beliefs that we can change. We can just eliminate that. I take an etheric scissors and just snip, 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 snip.
Right.
Thank you so much. And now I'm freeing both of us to
Right.
to be fully in our authenticity, fully in our own journey in completion. Yay.
Which actually brings you closer together than the agreement held you anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Nicole says I had a pee moment Saturday evening. I was explosive, relatively speaking. Yeah. Well, and that's what happens is like, and then you like step back. And the thing is, even in the moment of the explosion, is to keep the consciousness of I see this, I see this, I see this, I see this.
Right.
And not get lost in it, because then we'll like spend all this energy of like yeah, like, and I still did, but it was it as it went on, I just spent more time like saying, okay, I'm looking at this and I know it will change as soon as I find the root to it,
Right. Right.
release it.
Yep.
That's really the power of this kind of work, the
It
real
is.
power and beauty and simplicity of it. Because as soon as you find that core, everything goes like nothing ever happened. Like, oh, everything just smooths out. And then, you know, like people would ask me about like what's going on. Oh, nothing. It's fine. Everything's great. Yeah, Nicole says, yeah. I was like, WTF? Yeah, exactly.
Right. Right.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, but and the thing is, as we are so used to being embedded in this human experience in the body and the separation and that mind thing going, right? As we're was it dehabituating ourselves from the reactions that we're used to having as human
Right.
or as
Right.
or whatever, and exceed and transcending that to navigate it better, to navigate it not better, to navigate it more holistically, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're still gonna. The thing is, I always tell anyone, just commit yourself to seeing it within yourself.
Right. That shifts, that starts the ball rolling, and you at that point you can't stop it. You
Right,
can't deny it anymore.
right. Because once you do it once, then every time you'll have that little opening of your consciousness going, watch what you're doing,
Right.
pay attention.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, yeah.
And it was funny because once that all resolved and everything went, it was like, and it's so like, almost like a breath. I felt like I
Right.
wanted to sleep for a week. It's like, oh my God, all that energy that I put to the ego
And holding.
the ego holding and not wanting to look at it. So it wants to look over here and create all this energy over here. It's like treading water and
Right.
like, and it's, you know, and then finally going, oh, well, I don't even have to tread water. I can just float because that all just dissipated because I finally looked over here.
Right.
Yeah. So the key, I think, this week is for us to commit ourselves to seeing that within ourselves, seeing the peace, you know, like seeing the committing ourselves to finally resolving the P in our mattresses, right? The princess and
Right.
the pea thing, right? Resolving what is the little thing that we have hidden from ourselves so deeply that we don't realize how much of a web of stuff we've put around it to not look at it, but to finally have the presence and quietude to not ignore it anymore.
Or not accepted as good enough.
Right. And to, yeah, not accept working around it is good enough. Right.
Right.
Yes. And to finally say, yeah, no, you know what? I deserve to be clear of this, clear and free, to make it
Right.
easy. And now I can really step into my authenticity and my power. And if I don't, then I'm afraid of something else. So that's another P to look at.
Exactly. Exactly.
So, okay. So all that's just nothing. Little
Oh,
tiny
yeah.
stuff. We got this. So all of that in a nice little bow. Yeah, and make it easy. And let's make it easy
Right.
in an easy, accepting, calm, peaceful, clear way so that we can finally move beyond.
Let's do it.
I can already feel it. It's like, oh, wait, I'm stopping now. All right, let's go. Oh, that was cool.
That was great.
Gloria says, so cool. I was on this beautiful swing wrapped in flowers, just way up on the clouds looking down, smiling, not a care in the world. Yeah, just I kept on seeing things just like almost like pulling out not like thorns, but something
Like
like
pins in a voodoo
yeah,
doll.
yeah, yeah. Something like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, ah,
Yeah.
ah. It's like, and my crown was so tingly the whole time. I was like, oh God, this is just like nice, really nice. Yeah. Oof. Itchy.
Oh,
Well,
I could have just stayed out there floating.
me too. I just started, God, I just couldn't seem to get enough like, oxygen into my body to
Right.
get in there. So, all right. Well, everyone's got their to-dos for this week.
Right.
Hopefully it helps. Because the more of us who figure out our P's and resolve them and let them
Right.
go, the faster we move forward as a collective. So, and by the way, the faster we find our P's in the collective and change all that too. So,
Right.
wow, I'm just so tingly after that. That was
Yeah.
just, I just kept on seeing just one thing after the other. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. This is Angela Coulter, and
Erisig Avignoni.
we'll see you next week on Ascended World. Have a good one. There we go.